Good morning, Mr. President. My fellow Rotarians, apologize for being a little late here. Food was a little late, but Roger is going to lead us in the prayer and four-way test.
Thanks, Dwayne. All right, let's pray. God, on a beautiful day like this, sometimes it's easier to see you alive and at work, but you're always working. We thank you for that privilege, and we realize that there's people that are really hurting really bad. Keep us with hearts of compassion. Keep us focused on others. Keep us serving well and loving well. Thanks for Senator Schickel and all the work he puts in on our behalf. Thanks for this food. We love you a bunch. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Are we doing pledge?
Yes.
All right, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I need Gary Stewart's help. That's an inside joke. First. Yeah. All right, the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First. Second. Third. Fourth. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Roger. Over the weekend, the Reds made history again. Not the history that we were looking for. I still am scratching my head figuring out how you lose a ball game on a no-hitter. Sean, fill us in on this.
All right. Dwayne, I've told you already, you better stop scratching your head. It's having an effect. But yes, we had a no-hitter against the Pirates. We walked the bases loaded and then a ground ball to the infielder, and the run came in, and the Reds went down in order in the ninth. So it was nice. The Reds have been a very historic ball club, being the first one since 1876. So we're glad that they keep setting records. But on a better note, we have the Cincinnati Bengals have 5 primetime games next year, this season. So we'll be having a lot of the economy stimulated here from folks coming to fill up that stadium, and it'll be great. Folks will be going to New Orleans and Tampa Bay and Nashville, Tennessee to see the Titans. So that's all good. And then we have a visitor with us, Deanna Picklesmeyer. Deanna, you want to stand and tell us what you do? Welcome, Deanna. Let's welcome Deanna. Great. Welcome. Thank you. And those guys were clapping right next to you when you were introduced. That's pretty cool. So we have a politician, a statesman that's going to speak today, so I won't take long, but I want you to know that he has brought his aide, Justin, with him, and it reminds me of a story, John. So Dustin, thank you. Memorable. Sorry, Dustin. But William Howard Taft was getting ready to speak before a big august body like this, and his aide got up there and he went on and bloviating about the exuberance and wonderment of William Howard Taft and all of his programs and all of the things that he was going to do. Many of you may remember that William Howard Taft was about 6 foot tall and about 300 pounds, kind of a big man from Cincinnati, Ohio. So this aide went on and on and on, and then Senator Taft got up there and asked the gentleman to stop. And he said, but you know, you're just pregnant with all these great ideas. And Senator Taft said, son, that may be gas. John, should I introduce you that way? Or?
I'm not sure how I followed that. Guys, just got back from the district conference down in Somerset, Kentucky. There was a movie that I watched once. It was called Yes Man. Jim Carrey was involved with it. And the story was about his life wasn't going well and he attended a seminar. And the seminar is that you had to say yes to everything. Guys, I got so many ideas from this convention, and you better watch out when I approach you, and you better be saying yes. The district conference was incredible. John Sawyer's was, I mean, his name was mentioned in every presentation. I know time's short, and I'll go over it next week. Just a reminder, the foundational meeting is going to be here in Erlanger, June 12th. The district governor will be here, so I'd like to get as many people from the club attending. And John, I know where time is short here, so everybody knows our good friend Senator Schickel, and I like to call him the Schickel Pickle. And based on his fundraiser that he has every year, and I'm surprised you didn't bring any pickles, John. No pickles? Oh, okay, all right. Please help me introduce our senator. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and I think I know most everyone here. It's so great to see our homeschoolers with us this morning. I thank you for letting me serve as your state senator, and I want to thank the Florence Rotary Club for letting me, I call this my annual State of the Commonwealth address. I've been doing this for several years, and we're going to talk about a couple of things. We're going to talk about our recent session. And then we're going to also talk about kind of just the state of our state and Boone County in general. And so it should be a interesting time. I want to thank, first of all, Julia Powell for helping with this, and Dustin, who's holding up the phone there. Dustin, raise your hand. He drove up from Frankfurt. I have a wonderful staff in Frankfurt, and he's one of them. Dustin, thank you for all your hard work on this. As you see on the screen, you have a picture of the state capitol. How many people in this room have never been to the state capitol? I knew there was a few, and that's why I wanted to show you some pictures. And Julia, who's ever controlling this, you can just show some of these pictures. But our state capitol, if you've never been there, you need to go. If you have children or grandchildren, you need to go. It's a wonderful, wonderful place, and it's my honor to work there. Almost every day during the session, I live in Frankfurt, January, February, and March. And I get out of the car, and I just go, wow, every time. It never goes away. The history of our capital, the beauty of our capital. I think you saw the picture of the roses, the beautiful rose garden there, the Senate chambers are. If you haven't been to Frankfurt, I urge you to come and visit. Our current state capitol was built in 1900. We call that the new state capitol. There's a very interesting old state capitol, which actually is not the first state capitol in downtown Frankfurt, which you can tour and go look at. You can call and get tours, get official tours. One of the things I hear very often after people come to the capitol is that, boy, we didn't know this. Or we went to Washington and we enjoyed this more than Washington because you don't have all the security and parking problems and all the logistic problems. So if you've never been there, come. I want to talk a little bit generally. I'm your state senator. I work for you. I represent you. And I feel like it's an honor that you send me there to represent you. And people just in this very room agree and disagree on things. So I know sometimes I do things that you disagree with, and I know sometimes I do things you agree with. But my job, living in a representative republic that we do, is to go down there and look at the issue and do the best job I can deciding how to vote. And one of the most often questions I get asked is, how do you determine how you vote? And that's a great question. How do you determine how you vote? And I've been there 14 years and I've seen the influence of social media. Now I'll be sitting getting ready to vote in Schickel's towards the end of the alphabet. So in the Senate, they call the names by alphabet. So I'm kind of towards the end. And I'll be sitting there watching my phone and I'll get a text from Adam Howard, do this. Then I'll get a text from Gary Moore, do this. And then a text. And those texts don't always agree. Sometimes it's very close friends, people I respect. And I'm sitting there, how the heck am I supposed to vote on this? So it's kind of an interesting dynamic, but it was set up that way on purpose. It was set up that way on purpose because you all don't have time to go to Frankfurt and vote on all these issues. So you send your state senator to come and do it on your behalf. And then as you saw, and I think it's real important just briefly to describe the dynamics that we work in, because if you've never been to the Capitol and you're new to the area, we have kind of the political makeup or the political landscape. Well, the political makeup is Frankfurt is very Republican right now, both the House and the Senate. We call it super majorities. And what we mean by a super majority is that we can override the governor on a veto if we have to. So that's called a super majority. But the governor is a Democrat. So you kind of have mixed government. You have the executive branch one thing, and you have the legislative branch something else. And so that's kind of the environment that we work in. Tomorrow, right here in Boone County and in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, we have a primary election. It amazes me how many people don't really know the difference between a primary and a general election. And so I just want to touch on that briefly. And the reason I want to touch on it briefly is it affects the dynamics of my work so very, very much. And that is that tomorrow, the parties select their candidate, not the general public, the party. So it's really a party selection process. And then in November is the general election when the full community comes and decides who they want. And you say, well, John, why are you talking about it? And the reason I talk about it is because it really affects the way legislation works. The other thing that I want to talk on just briefly, and I just saw this morning, I thought about what are terms we use that we throw around that you may not be familiar with, and that's the term caucus. How many people in here, is there anyone in here, let's say, who knows what a caucus is? I don't want to raise your hand. Okay, so quite a few of you do know what a caucus is. Well, we throw that term around, but a caucus is all the Republicans or all the Democrats, that makes up the caucus. But then we have other caucuses too, which you hear a lot about. You hear about the Northern Kentucky caucus. That's a geographic caucus where we all get together from Northern Kentucky, regardless of party, and we do what we call a caucus. So those are some of the things I thought was important. And then there's one other thing, and that's the role of committees, because we hear about that so much too. The committee is like the primary process that something goes through. And we have committees all year round. We have committees all summer long. And we'll be getting ready for the session. We'll be hearing things in committee. Sports gaming is a big thing. It didn't pass last session. We'll be hearing that in committee. In fact, we'll probably be hearing that in committee in June, right up here in Northern Kentucky. And I'll be chairing that committee because that's the Licensing and Occupation Committee, which all business regulation goes through. And I am honored to be able to chair that committee because all business regulation goes through that committee. And in the House, another Northern Kentuckian chairs it, and that's Adam Koenig. So, and while I'm talking about this, because I think it's important that you're all aware of that, and I see our judge executive here, and that is that we have, and it affects county government so much, especially when I'm going to talk about next, and that is we have a lot of committee chairs in Northern Kentucky. The Transportation Budget Committee chair is from Northern Kentucky, Sal Santoro. That's huge. It controls all our road funding, and working with the county and the cities, we've just been able to do some wonderful, wonderful things under Sal's leadership, under our judge executive's leadership, under the mayor's leadership, the whole caucus. We've been able to do unbelievable things with road funding, unprecedented things with road funding. And funding in general, because the other committee chairman that's from Northern Kentucky is the chairman of the budget committee, Chris McDaniel from Kenton County. I don't know any of you know Chris, but he's one of the sharpest numbers guys there is. His brain operates like a computer, and he's a wonderful, wonderful chair. So we really have it good here in Northern Kentucky. Our leadership treats us very good in Northern Kentucky, and I'm so thankful for our Senate leadership and how good and the positions they've put me in over the years, in the 14 years I've been able to serve you. It's been a great, rewarding relationship. And right on cue, we've gone to one of my favorite, this is probably my favorite slide in the whole presentation. And I want you to look at it. It's up on your screen. Can everybody see it? Can you see it? Is it up there? Okay. Oh, shoot. Oh man, I'm disappointed. I love to explain the budget in pie charts, and do we have a printout of that we can hand out, Dustin? I love to break something complicated down into pie charts because a pie chart, if you're not a numbers guy like me, really shows the budget. And if you look at the whole blue area there, the blue area is all education, the light blue. And as you see, we spend most of our money on education, as well we should, because you know what? Sometimes my friends, my more conservative friends, they don't realize education is a constitutional responsibility mentioned specifically in the Constitution. And when I tell people that, some people are surprised, but it is. And it's one of the most important functions of government. And we've been able to really increase our funding in education. I think our Boone County school system, by and large, is very happy with education because we've really increased funding in education. If you look at the other parts of the pie chart, and I'm going to have to read it to you because you can't see it. I'm sorry about that. Medicaid is the red. And I want you to really look at Medicaid because Medicaid is not a constitutional responsibility. And anything that's not a constitutional responsibility as a conservative, as a constitutional conservative is what your state senator considers himself. I'm very concerned about growth in things that aren't constitutional responsibilities. And we've had a huge increase in Medicaid. Many things now are eligible for Medicaid that were not eligible for before, and we're just seeing an explosion in our Medicaid budget. There's one thing that really bothers me, and I hear this in Frankfurt a lot, and my party is somewhat guilty, the other party is very guilty, is this attitude that if it comes from the federal government, somehow it's free money, and we can just go ahead and spend it without any regard to the cost. And that's a terrible attitude, and that is the attitude with Medicaid, because much of this money is federal grant money, and much of this money is federal grant money. So that's the kind of attitude we have. And I just want to say something about drug treatment right now, because I think drug treatment falls into this category, and drug treatment is something that we see very much pushed and accepted. And you know, the record on drug treatment is not very good. The recidivism on drug treatment is not very good. And I'm all for drug treatment, don't get me wrong, but my problem is that we have made this an answer to almost all of our drug crime. And I think it's a big mistake, because the recidivism rate on court-ordered drug treatment is almost 100%. And every year we get different people rolling out programs that say, this is the program, it was drug court, then it's this, then it's that. Lots and lots of money being spent. $700 million, north of $700 million being spent. And we have and every year the problem gets worse. Now, I want to move a minute to the corrections budget. The corrections budget or the prison budget, because this is something, oh, thank you for the error there, Julia, is 5% of the total budget, and it's a constitutional responsibility. I am very, very concerned about the rise in crime in Kentucky. We have become soft on crime in Kentucky and nationally. The governor released almost, I think the number was almost 2,000 prisoners as a result of COVID, just released them into the public. We have a horrible crime problem in Northern Kentucky. We have a horrible crime in all our cities. We have a horrible crime problem. Crime is on the rise. And I hear all this talk about mass incarceration and how horrible it is. But the fact of the matter is, until we started releasing all these people from prison, we had a low crime rate. And now that we're releasing all these people from prison, our crime rate is going through the roof. And I'm very concerned about that. Can I see slide number 10, please? Slide number 10 shows you the budget 1990 compared to today. And you can see the changes in the different categories and the increase in the budget in different categories. And what you see when you look at that, and again, I'm sorry that you can't read it, and that is the tremendous increase in our Medicaid budget. Our Medicaid budget is going through the roof. You can see it was 7% of the budget in 1990, and it's 16% of the budget today. The increase in education, that's great. We need to get more money to education for sure. We need to get more money to transportation for sure. And that's what we're doing. Go ahead and roll through this. Okay. Yeah, this is a good one here. One of the things we've been able to do with the great shape our budget is in this year is we've been able to give all our state employees an 8% raise. And they desperately needed a raise. We have a huge turnover in our state workforce. They were underpaid. But I'm going to talk now about one of the concerns I have about our session and about our country in general. And that is the reason we're so flush is because of COVID money from the federal government. That's the reason we're so flush. And so this is like artificial money. This isn't like real money. So we have this money, we're increasing education, we're giving our state employees raises, we're doing a lot of things that we couldn't do normally. But I'm worried that all this money that we've infused into these state budgets from the federal government, I think it's what's causing our inflation. Because this is artificial money, it's not real money. So, and it's been going on for quite a while, and it's still going on. And so I think that as far as the COVID money, I'm not sure that was wise to shove all that federal money at COVID and then shove it at the cities, shove it at the counties, shove it at the state governments. So we're flush like we've never been flush before, but it's a temporary situation. And economically, it's causing this horrible inflation right now and the problems in the stock market that we're seeing right now. I'm not an economist, but that's just my opinion. And I'm very, very concerned about it because I think it's, while we love having all this money, it's a problem. You can go ahead and move on. One of the things we've been able to do is put a lot of more money in our rainy day fund, just a great thing. You know, you don't ever know what the future holds. So the rainy day fund, we've been able to really give record money to the rainy day fund. You can move on. This shows our investments in education, and I'm sure if I have trouble reading it, I'm sure you'll have even more trouble reading it, and I'm sorry for that, but we've been able to do record investments in education. record investments in seek funding formula. You can move on. I believe the next slide shows seek funding, Julia. Okay, no, that's not. But we have record funding and seek funding. One of the things that's been mentioned is why didn't the teachers get a raise in the budget? And we gave that money directly to the school boards, and Julia was teasing me about that right when we came in, because Julia is also chairperson of our school board, our locally elected school board. But the school boards have the money to give those raises, and that's at the discretion of the local school board. Let's talk a little bit about tax reform. I see it's up on your slide. Can you read it?
Yes.
Thank you. Tax reform was a big issue, and our Republican supermajority is working hard on tax reform. Here's the general premise of what we're doing. We want to eventually get rid of the income tax and replace it with a sales tax, okay, on almost everything. And Julia, do you have any of those comparison slides of other states and what they're doing? There we go. Yeah. I love this slide. Can you read it?
Yes.
Good. This slide shows what the income tax of surrounding states. And look right below it, you see Tennessee, no income tax. So it's like a sucking of population, business, and people with money from Tennessee. And what's that do? It hurts our economy. Then you look around and you see all the other states around us. You see that we're a high income state. So what our goal is to gradually lower the income tax and replace that with a sales tax where you would choose where you spend your money, how you spend your money. But I think the most important thing is production won't be penalized. Production won't be penalized. You can move on, Julie. And this shows where the money comes from. Another great slide. Most of the money comes from individual income tax. So obviously, if we're getting most of our money from individual income tax, we're going to have to get it from somewhere else, and that's going to be from the sales tax. I think our revenues are just fine. I've been serving in government a long time, and we don't have a revenue problem in Frankfurt. We have a spending problem. We need to learn how to take our resources and use them, which leads me now to one of my favorite topics, and that's our signature industries. Horse racing and bourbon. Magically, both those things come under the jurisdiction of my committee, the Licensing and Occupation Committee. So it's a fun committee to serve on. But we have really had a successful 10 years in thoroughbred racing in Kentucky. And I am so happy. Turfway, as you know, Turfway is building a brand new track out there, replacing the old track. We are not far away from having a competitive, one of the most competitive thoroughbred racing circuit in the country, year round. We're seeing trainers from Saratoga, all tracks now in Kentucky year round. How many people know what historical racing is? Raise your hand. I'm surprised so many, because historical racing is something that's unique to Kentucky. And it really kind of happened as an accident. I've always been against casinos in Kentucky. When you look at states that have casinos, the reviews are mixed, but it's interesting. The budgets of those states are no better than the budgets without casinos. And I always use the analogy, you know, if you're having financial problems at your family, you don't turn to gambling to solve them. But that's really probably not a fair analogy. But I had a couple of reasons why I've always been against casinos, and I know many of you disagree with that. And one of them is our signature industry. Our thoroughbred industry is based on what we call pari-mutuel bet, where people bet among themselves. The odds are not stacked against you in a pari-mutuel bet. You're actually playing against everyone else in the track. So it is a little bit different. But the reason I bring that up is historical racing technically is also a pari-mutuel bet. It's not a slot machine, although it is kind of a loophole. I'll be honest with you. If you'd walk into one of these places, you'd think you were in a slot machine parlor. But what a historical racing is, it's a game of chance based on previous races that is a pari-mutuel bet. And it's become incredibly popular. I'm proud to say I sponsored the bill that made it law in Kentucky. And our thoroughbred racing has really benefited from it. And that's why Turfway is building a new track. That's why our purses are through the roof, some of the best purses in the country. So our thoroughbred racing is on a great trajectory. And I think that's going to really benefit Northern Kentucky and our whole state. In our bourbon industry is another huge success story. And we've been doing, I'm not going to get into the details of legislation, but we've been doing legislation every session on bourbon, and not just bourbon, small farm wineries and craft breweries too. And just quickly, I want to share with you, because I think it's important, that private industry has done something the government could never do. Our craft brewery industry has revitalized the urban core, and that's because of laws that we changed in Frankfurt. Just go to any city and what you see these craft breweries. Our bourbon trail has revitalized tourism in Kentucky. Go to Europe or go anywhere. What's the first thing people ask you after Kentucky Fried Chicken? Where's the bourbon trail? They all want to know that. And our small farm wineries, we have a lot of work to do, but we have some of them right here in Boone County, are revitalizing many of our abandoned tobacco farms. This is, I think, is a great example of what we can do with tourism and private industry and what we've done. The bourbon industry, they're like through the moon already. We have more work to do with our wineries, but it's a great success story. A couple other things. What are some of our big successes of the session? For me, one of them was Senate Bill 1, which changed our governance of our school system. I've been working on this for 10 years. And I saw Julia over there, and she's chair of the school board, and she knows way more about this than I do. But we had a dysfunctional governance system of our schools in Kentucky. And thanks to support like people like Randy Poe and homeschoolers and a very diverse group of people, we got this change finally after 8 years of session, where our school system is going to really have to answer to our local school board through the superintendent, through a professional, the superintendent. And we passed laws, which was part of that, which I feel strongly about, which I think are going to revitalize civics and history teaching into our school system. So I was very excited about that. The other thing that you don't hear too much about, but I hear about it all the time from the business community, and maybe some of you, and that's our unemployment insurance situation. We had businesses, and I see Mr. Harkey back there, businesses that can't find employees, but we have people on unemployment. It was a bad system. Through very hard work of some people in the Northern Kentucky caucus, because we got a lot of blowback from it. But we were able to we didn't get everything we wanted, but we were able to revitalize our unemployment system and make it so the work, if you're going to be on unemployment, you either had to be looking for work or be in job training, which was not a requirement before. And we shortened up the times based on what the unemployment rate was. You know, if the unemployment rate is almost zero, there's no reason to have a long window of time in there. Now, and so we made it a trigger where that would be adjustable depending on how long the unemployment insurance was. And then the other thing, which I talked about, but I probably want to end with this too, is just our roads. And again, I see Judge Moore, and he's been a huge part of this, helping his leadership on it. But, you know, I get complaints about transportation in Boone County. Well, I'm here to tell you folks, we are the envy of the state with our transportation. And I know the barrels and the construction are a nuisance, but we've had record investment in transportation. And it's been, I think it's been really, really a good thing. I think I'm about out of time, so and I know some of you have questions, so I want to open it up to any questions or comments.
Gary,
Yes.
talk about the state employees and giving them credit. Like Rotary County, maybe have that unemployment versus different county, that state workers get paid the same. And it's value of the job, but kind of it's that same job. So is there a way to extend it? Or thought given that?
I don't know. I know what you're saying. You're a state employee wherever you are, the employment environment's very different. And we didn't fix that, but it's probably something that does need to be looked at. It gets complicated because, as you know, human nature comes into effect, and anytime you deal with pay and what people are making, everybody's always comparing. But I do hear what you're saying, and you bring up an excellent point. Anyone else? Yes, doctor.
Any interested in company meeting with the main union drivers, high school athletes?
Yeah, Dustin, you're going to have to put that down your list of things to get back to the back to you about. There's been a huge. We even had some legislation on it. I'm not real up to date on it, but I do know that it's a huge, huge issue for. It's a huge issue as that, and the other one is, and no one wants to talk about it, but I'm just going to talk about it because I have a responsibility to. This transgender thing in sports is a huge deal too. Huge deal. I mean, my computer gets blown up. We did pass some legislation on that, but you know, those two issues I hear a whole lot about. Yes, Julia. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So seek funding for
Mm-hmm.
very much.
Right.
So the $100 that you have added for us, $60.
Mm-hmm.
Last year when we went to start the budget, we ran a property valuation. We have a $5 million increase in property value tax. But the seed program took that whole $5 million from us. We had to set $2 million aside for capital. So we started our budget $2 million. We're facing that same situation. What can you do outside the seed program to get the money that we need?
Well, and this is something that people have been talking about for years because the high growth districts being penalized by the SEEK formula. And I'm working with Ed Matthews, a former school board member. I'm not on the education committee, so I'm looking to his leadership on the issue. But I can tell you this: anything that's done to correct it, John Schickel will be there 100% supporting it because it definitely needs to be. We are penalized by our growth, and we are also penalized by our you know, the way it was explained to me is our local contributions are higher actually than what the state pays, and that's just wrong because as I started out in the beginning of my talk, education is a state responsibility, not a local responsibility.
One more question. Gotcha. Yes. There was a bill floating around the house, I think passed the house, that created a tax incentive for contributions to scholarship funds for private schools and schools and stuff like that. Do you know where that is on the Senate or?
There's a lot going on in that area. I had a bill myself about homeschoolers and Keys money. And I was a little frustrated, and I'm just going to tell you the way it is. You know, I got in a big knockdown drag out over in Frankfurt. We're letting convicted felons have Keys monies in our prisons. I mean, in fact, we passed that bill this legislative session over my objection, okay, over my vocal objection, okay? Yet we can't give homeschoolers who have harbored the responsibility of this expense their whole, and taken it off the government, and whose test scores are high, we can't give it to them, okay? So, but there's a bunch, the Catholic school or private school situation, the tax credits, that's something that the Catholic Church has been pushing very hard. I've also supported not just the Catholic Church, but they've been the main lobbying group because it will benefit all the religious schools. That's something that I support also very vigorously. But it's one thing I learned about, is when you get into these issues, it's complicated and it's heated because you have people that are very convicted on both sides of the issue. But we didn't make the progress on the bill you're talking. We didn't make the progress we wanted to on that. Of course, I could get into charter schools and we'd be here another hour. But those education is on the front burner. And that's why I focus was on school governance. That was my focus because I was going to say it's not, reasonable people can disagree. But who can disagree that school systems ought to be accountable to the taxpayers? And we had a system in Kentucky where schools weren't accountable to taxpayers. The school board and the superintendent didn't have the final say on many, many matters, including curriculum and hiring of principals and all kinds of stuff. And so I thought, well, let's get that fixed. And we did get that fixed. But the things you talk about are battles for another day, and I'm sure there's people in this room have different opinions about it.
Thank you, John.
Hey. Thank you. And if there's something I didn't answer, get with Dustin and he'll write it down and I will get back to you with an answer if I can find one. Thank you all.
Dwayne had to step out and leave early. Thank you for the talk today. It was very informative, Senator. Couple of points. Next week, we will be learning about the student exchange program. So be here, 12 o'clock. Meal will start service at 11:45. We are not meeting on May 30th. And to let you know, I have now the senator's PowerPoint, so I will be sending it out through a DAC-DB email so that you'll be able to read all of those numbers. Any questions before we dismiss? Don't forget to vote, yes. Since 4 of my locations are voting spots, don't forget to vote.